Senzo Meyiwa murder trial will resume tomorrow after adjourning for the day just a short while ago. It was just before 1 o'clock, I believe. Today's proceedings centered around, yet again, the evidence on the alleged murder weapon and bullets found on the crime scene. Chief Forensic Investigator Olebile Sereo being cross-examined. Let's bring in Newzroom Afrika's Mnisi, who, as usual, has been keeping a close eye on proceedings. Good afternoon, Linda. Thanks for coming into studio. There was a moment at the end of today's proceedings, obviously it was adjourned before lunch, where it seemed like the judge is nearing the end of his tether. His patience is running out.
Absolutely, and we've seen quite a lot of those moments in this case, especially when he feels like he's bent over backwards, to use his exact words, to try and accommodate the parties in trying to reach whatever agreement or for the case to proceed. And in this particular case, you would have seen the cross-examination. All the other parties have cross-examined, but the lawyer for accused number 3, Advocate Mnisi, is not in court today. Advocate Nxumalo was standing in for him, and that meant that cross-examination has had to continue without him. So we've had Nxumalo after Olebile, as well as then Zandile Mshololo, and he was just lamenting the issues of procedure to say it really never happens like that, in these criminal cases.
Sorry, Linda, I understand that one of the lawyers as well was unavailable to continue today because he's also on another case in a lower court. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that is indeed Advocate Mnisi, who's representing accused number 3. And this is important evidence, Michelle, if you'd remember. This is important evidence in that the murder weapon is allegedly linked to accused number 3.
Right.
We've gone through the ballistics with Christopher Mangena, and now we're going to the evidence of the reviewer, the person who reviewed Mangena's work and agreed with him, testifying about how he made those particular findings. And, looking at the cross-examination today, 2 people were able to cross-examine, and this was like before lunch. And now the court having to adjourn early because Advocate Mnisi is not available. But and also...
Yeah, I'm interrupting you constantly. But the judge has obviously set out today in his diary for this case to continue, hasn't he?
Absolutely, and you'd recall that that particular court on its own has been put there or put separately for this particular case, and it comes at a point where the state is nearing the end of its case. You'd recall that they did indicate that after these ballistic witnesses, they would then be calling the lead investigator in the case, that is Brigadier Bongani Gininda, which would then signal the end of the state's case. From there, the defense will then choose what they want to do. Are they applying for a Section 174, a discharge, or are they going to open their case and present their defense? So these are things that sort of, slow down the pace of the case, which the judge would usually show frustration to.
And in fact, he went as far as to say he's had a conversation with the judge president, who is also not happy with the continuous postponements.
Absolutely. I mean, even with the issues around how long, in fact, the cross-examination or the evidence of Chris Mangena was stood down for, it was for over a year. And he said, the judge president even asked him, what business do you have with the defense being able to secure their own ballistic expert? This guy has testified and it's been over a year. And that is why, it's part of the reasons, in fact, that he then decided that Chris Mangena's cross-examination would start earlier than anticipated, because he had indicated that he had given them enough time. And he felt that he was bending over backwards to accommodate the defense in this particular respect. He always laments issues like, it's never happened before that a witness's testimony would stand down for over a year, and he's made those kind of decisions in this case, accommodating other people, and that's why he's had to force that they continue. But today largely focused on, Sereo and his cross-examination, particularly relating to the IBIS system. This is the integrated ballistics identification system used in ballistics. And if you'd recall, the evidence of Mangena was that they didn't use it in this particular case because there were no cartridges. And, Sereo explains it further in terms of how it can then help to sort of link particular cases. I want us to take a listen to how he then explains it.
You also mentioned that the IBIS will work with the exhibits which are on the system registered on the same case.
IBIS compares and correlates all the exhibits which are in the database. Okay, so it correlates them against each other.
So it means even in this case, because the bullet was received under a separate case number and the firearm was received under a separate case number, but when they are all put on the IBIS would have been able to pick them up.
Provided that those samples have been acquired into IBIS system.
All right, so also another issue that was touched on, you'd recall, Michelle, that a lot of what we've seen during this testimony of the ballistic expert has to do with the contestation of methods, experience, and expertise. Because if you look at the two different experts, what they're saying is that the state's expert says, well, I've found enough markings to make for a positive match, which means this is the positive gun that shot and killed Senzo Meyiwa. The other expert, the defense's expert, says, well, I did not find enough to make for a positive, therefore inconclusive. So there's been a question around the methods that were used. And
I mean, it feels like a yes or no answer to me. Is it a match or is it not a match?
Absolutely. And quite interesting that they then delve into the methods that were used. The defense saying that he should have actually used a CMS, which then prescribes the number of markings that one would need to identify before any breakages in that particular bullet. But what they are saying is that they are using the pattern matching system, which is what South Africa subscribes to. These are two different methods that do not basically outweigh each other. They, in fact, they complement each other in a way. One does not disregard the other. So essentially what he's saying, Sereo is saying, is that the default system or the default method that would be used in South Africa in terms of identifying those individual markings that would then make for a positive match would be this pattern matching system, which was used by Mangena. But also the issues of how the firearm was handled, because the defense says the procedure, according to them, is that Mangena should have fired 2 bullets to come to a conclusion. But in this case, he fired 8. And they're saying, why did he do that? Sereo also says there is no prescribed limit or maximum number of bullets that one uses. If he decided to fire 8, it is still within what was required for him. So essentially, seemingly going further to agree with his findings that this is indeed the firearm that killed Senzo Meyiwa. But of course, there are issues of this firearm being found in an open seal bag, which the defense, say there may have been tampering with the firearm. I remember the lawyer for accused number 1 asking Mangena if there was a possibility that he was given the wrong exhibits, and in this case meaning firearm, wrong bullet. And he said, well, if there were wrong exhibits, then that person would have had to bring a bullet that would match the bullet damages that were found in the house. But even those were challenged to say there are some splinters in the door that were removed. 2 pictures that one has splinters and the other does not have splinters, which then indicates that there may have been tampering even with the bullet damages that were found in the house.
Well, the case continuing tomorrow, and if the judge has his way, it'll be a full sitting of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial tomorrow. Linda Mnisi is our reporter tracking that story.